Hey everyone, Jordan here. Today I'm going to talk briefly about VLLCs, which of course stands for Virtual Library Learning Commons. Virtual Commons have become an integral component of the Integrated Library Commons movement, which is why I chose this topic for my inquiry. Despite their central role in modern libraries, there is a shocking lack of research, which made it difficult for me to answer my guiding question, namely, how can we create a virtual library learning commons that engages students? Engages being the key word. Pragmatics determine usefulness, and if a resource is being ignored, it's pretty useless, no matter how nice or theoretically perfect it may be. Although I struggled to find information on VLLC specifically, I was able to find a wide range of content on effective web design, the conglomeration of presentation tools and research tools, and also information on how to make digital resources accessible so a younger audience will use them. Ultimately, by exploring this information with the lens of a teacher librarian, I was able to arrive at some fairly concrete and in some cases surprising conclusions. Before I go any further, I would like to establish, so there is no confusion, that I am intentionally avoiding aesthetics in this presentation. Although aesthetics are a major component of a website's appeal, I'm primarily concerned with resource selection, the content that should be included in a VLLC, and resource presentation, how to effectively categorize and incorporate resources so they're used. Before I go any further, I should probably explain why VLLCs are necessary at all. The truth is, many of the goals modern teacher librarians strive to achieve, as laid out in the leading learning document, are supported by a well-designed VLLC. The VLLC is an active learning environment where students can explore new content in hands-on ways, engage with information, and co-create understanding through the creative process. Specifically, the VLLC, if properly designed, can play an integral role in helping students develop inquiry skills like research and source evaluation, as well as widely applicable digital citizenship skills ranging from internet safety knowledge to tool-specific capabilities. Most importantly, the VLLC can support interest-driven learning through creative endeavors, all while promoting multiple literacies and thinking skills. The modern vision of a VLLC is a reflection of these goals. According to the leading learning document, a VLLC should be a place where students can learn new digital skills, network and collaborate, work independently, find new and exciting digital resources and technology, as well as experiment. Simply put, a well-designed VLLC not only supports every subject, but also helps students develop invaluable academic skills, many of which double as life skills in the 21st century. However, for a VLLC to serve these functions, it must be well designed, and more importantly, designed with its user in mind, namely students. Ultimately, I had to take a broad view of effective web design when conducting my research. There simply wasn't enough information on VLLCs and grade school student internet usage, beyond the handful of troubling facts I was able to uncover, like their infamously lazy research skills and short attention span. Nevertheless, what I discovered is directly applicable to grade school VLLCs. In fact, I truly believe that the recurring themes I uncover provide a framework with which any teacher librarian, can build an engaging websites that students actually want to use. Let's dive on in. What does the research say? All the research on effective web design and what little research I could find on VLLCs suggests that there are two primary factors that should be taken into consideration when designing a website or a virtual library learning commons. These factors are accessibility and content relevance, or relevance in general. Accessibility refers to how easily a website can be navigated by its user. Are they overwhelmed with options, or is it streamlined, designed with the consumer in mind in order to maximize their experience? Relevance, or more specifically content relevance, refers to how important or useful the information and content on the site is. Do the resources fill a need? Or are they white noise, confusing, or worse still, ineffective? This point is particularly pertinent to school VLLCs. There are a ton of digital resources available for educators. Have you included good options? Have you included the best option? Even though these two factors can be thought of as distinct criteria separate from one another, the truth is they are connected. One contributes to the other, and when combined in a purposeful manner, they result in an effective web-based platform. Despite their inseparability, in order to fully understand these criteria and the scope of considerations they encapsulate, it's important to explore them in isolation. Let's take a closer look at accessibility. It can be thought of in two ways. The first is to think about accessibility in terms of adaptations that support individuals with unique needs. One common adaptation is a text reader. Even though this sort of adaptation is more prevalent on government websites, they have a place on every web page, including the VLLC. What's more, they don't have to be as advanced as text readers. Something as simple as icon buttons greatly supports the needs of emerging readers. The second way to think about accessibility is in terms of how easy it is to navigate a site. Users shouldn't have to work hard to find what they need, because if they can't find what they're after, they're going to use a different source. But how do you measure this kind of accessibility? I spoke with a friend of mine who runs a website analysis company. Ease of use is one of the criteria he uses when analyzing sites, and he explained ease of use in this way. If your website is well designed, your users should be able to find exactly what they are looking for in under 30 seconds on the worst day of their life. That's a high standard for any site to achieve. And it also represents the key link between our two primary criteria: content relevance and accessibility. White noise or useless content greatly reduces a user's ability to efficiently navigate any site in a purposeful and productive manner. Although there are aesthetic considerations a designer should take into account, which also bolster ease of use, like button layout, for instance. We aren't concerned with aesthetics. Content, on the other hand, is worth exploring. Interestingly enough, the number one piece of advice my friend gives website designers is to cut down on their content, or put largely irrelevant information somewhere most people will never even find it unless they're looking for it specifically. Which leads us to content relevance. All the research on effective web design and VLLCs is in total agreement. Choose your content carefully. Designers have a bad habit of doing too much, of putting everything on their site because, well, why not? Not only does this create an unpleasant user experience, it also greatly reduces a site's effectiveness. If you can't find what you're looking for because you have to dig through piles of useless information, you are going to use a different source. Let's think about it in terms of a VLLC for a second. In fact, let's go even deeper. Let's think about it from a student's perspective. Let's say, hypothetically, my teacher just assigned me an open-ended inquiry project on any subject. There's one criteria, and that is I have to use the resources available through the VLLC. Awesome. Until I log on to the VLLC and discover that there's 20 different databases, 10 different search engines, and 6 slideshow presentation tools. What now? Because I don't need 30 different databases. I need the best 2 databases, maybe 3. And I don't need 6 slideshow presentation tools. I need the best presentation tool. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying we should remove choice from the equation. Rather, I'm saying we need to ensure our students are able to make meaningful decisions when choosing between valuable resources like 5 good databases, and not bogged down by 30 indistinguishable and ineffective options. This, of course, is another factor that should be taken into consideration when assessing content relevance presentation. Does the user have everything they need to make an informed decision? If I decide to do my inquiry on hockey during World War II, will I be able to identify the 2 or 3 most relevant and effective databases in less than 30 seconds? Because if the answer is no, you just lost me. Ultimately, these 2 factors can be boiled down to one thing: simplicity. Now, I'll admit this wasn't the answer I expected when I started my inquiry, but that's not because it doesn't make sense, it's because I wasn't thinking carefully enough. Researchers have known about the importance of ease of use for nearly 100 years. In fact, there's an entire field dedicated to making things easy for humans to consume: human factors engineering. Human factors engineering was born out of sociocultural cognitive psychology. The guiding principle or belief behind this branch of psychology is that humans are born with universal cognitive capacities that are acted upon by the social and cultural environment until they are refined to cope with the requirements of day-to-day life. Although it is a relatively obscure branch of psychology, it has had a profound impact on tech development and education. John Dewey and Liv Vygotsky were both sociocultural cognitive psychologists. Dewey believed learning should reflect or imitate cultural tasks to stimulate evolved cognitive capacities and respond to social needs. And Vygotsky, who, as an aside, is my education theory hero, believes strongly that cognition is a reflection of culture, and that the best way to refine cognition is through the social transmission of knowledge, guided by a capable agent. Ultimately, even though the final form cognition takes is culturally dependent, the foundation is universal. One of the implications inherent to this belief is that tools can be optimized to support human cognition, which is where human factors engineering comes in. As a field, it was born out of need. During World War II, they couldn't train pilots fast enough. Cockpits were too complicated for new pilots to master. The solution to this problem was simplification. What did the pilots actually need in front of them to fly? What controls could be taken away? And where should everything be placed to optimize the user's experience? Needless to say, the field has expanded, to the point that almost every tool you will ever encounter in your entire life has been engineered with your physical and psychological needs in mind, and that includes websites. Which brings us to the hardest part of this inquiry, formulating all the research into a handful of meaningful guidelines to use when designing a VLLC. Again, I'm not going to talk about aesthetics. Ultimately, everything I read and learned can be summarized into 5 practical design tips. The first is the importance of homepage simplicity. Don't overwhelm your user. Think carefully what you actually need to include on your homepage. The school address, your name, contact info, guiding principle and mission statement, and maybe 2 or 3 entries detailing school-wide events. Other than these few elements, all you really need is a navigation bar. Remember, less is more. Ideally, your homepage will be so small your user won't have to scroll up or down to see all the content. The second is the importance of a clean navigation bar. Don't scare your audience away with too many options. Where VLLCs are concerned, you really only need maybe 5 headings: research, presentation tools, teacher resources, digital citizenship, and tech tools. Each can be a drop-down menu if necessary, and if that is the case, make sure your categories are logical and concise. For instance, if you have a research drop-down menu, on the navigation bar, have a page dedicated to databases, a page dedicated to pathways, and still another page just for newspaper articles. Don't make your user browse through content they have no interest in. The third key is to be picky when choosing content. If something is going to be on your site, you should have a reason for including it. Again, less is more. Give your user valuable resources, not a billion of them. The fourth guideline is to make sure you are presenting the content in a user-friendly and effective manner. Any resource should have a brief description attached to it, where tools are concerned, and by tools I mean databases, presentation tools, and coding sites, etc. Include tutorials if possible. Finally, ensure your site is easy to navigate. Use pictures. Make sure every web page can be directly accessed from the homepage. Use cookie crumb coding. Make sure your page categorizations make sense. Be narrow. Don't throw everything under one broad heading. Create subcategories. Most of the time, your user knows what they want. All you need to do is help them find it. I can confidently say that if you follow these 5 tips, you will create a VLLC that students want to use, regularly use, and that helps support their learning, no matter where they are in the school. By way of a conclusion, I want to talk very quickly about the role staff should play in promoting the school VLLC. I was able to find a fair bit of information on this, and generally it's recommended that teacher librarians find time at the start of the year to present the VLLC so everyone has a good understanding of what it is and the resources available on it. In addition to familiarizing staff with the site, this session allows you as a group to explore the different ways a VLLC can be used in classrooms, introduces teachers to new tools, and also brings the VLLC to the forefront of their attention. VLLCs are unseen, and for this reason they're often forgotten. Simply reminding the staff they have this wonderful resource at their disposal greatly increases the likelihood they and their students will use it. In terms of getting teachers involved, offer them opportunities to post classwork and assignments in the teacher section, recruit helpers to create pathways, and, as always, offer your support incorporating the VLLC in their classroom through collaborative endeavors. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. All my sources are at the end. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Enjoy the rest of your day.